Good morning, guys. So we're going to talk about solving polynomial equations by factoring. So this is an extension of the lesson that we did last week, where we talked about all the different factoring methods. So the first thing you want to do is you want to move all terms to one side and set the equation equal to 0. Okay, then you want to factor the polynomial completely using one of the factoring methods. Then you're going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve for each x value. For quadratic equations, solve by square roots, completing the square or the quadratic formula. Simplify all irrational and complex solutions. Okay, so on number 1, so the first thing that we can do on this is we can take out a greatest common factor because we have an x in both of these terms. So we're going to factor an x out. Okay, so when you do that, x cubed divided by x is x squared. And x divided by x is 1. Okay, we cannot simplify this anymore. We could do difference of squares if this was subtraction, but it's not, so we can't simplify any further than that. Okay, so now we're going to set both of these equal to 0. So we set x equal to 0, and that's done. And then we have x squared plus 1 equals 0. So then we want to solve this. Well, first, you want to move the 1 over by subtracting it. So you have x squared equals negative 1. Then to cancel out a square, we want to take the square root of both sides. And x equals, well, the square root of negative 1, that equals I. Okay, and when you take the square root, remember you have plus or minus. So it's plus or minus I. Okay, so 0 and plus or minus I. So since we have 2 here, we want to write a solution set. So we say x equals, squiggle brackets, plus or minus I, comma, 0. Okay, and remember, I just like to write these from least to greatest, and I pretty much always put the imaginary numbers first. Okay, on number 2, so first you want to make sure you get everything over to the same side. So that 3x squared, we want to subtract it over. So we have 4x cubed, and negative 7x squared and negative 3x squared is negative 10x squared. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is we want to see if there's a greatest common factor we can take out. Well, we can take a 2 out of both 4 and 10, and we can take an x squared out of both of these because they both have an x, and the one with the smallest exponent is x squared. So we're going to factor out a 2x squared. Okay, so 4x cubed divided by 2x squared is 2x. And negative 10x squared divided by 2x squared is negative 5. Okay, that's as simplified as you can get it. So now you want to set each factor equal to 0. So 2x squared equals 0, and 2x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, well over here to solve that, well first you've got to divide both sides by 2. So x squared equals 0. Then take the square root, and x equals 0. Over here, you want to add 5 over. So 2x equals 5, and divide by 2. Okay, so we have x equals 5 over 2. So our solution set is 0, 5 over 2. Okay, on number 3. Okay, everything's already over here. So what method can we do here? Well, we can take the square root of both of these and it's subtraction. So we can do difference of squares. Okay, so the square root of x to the 4th is x squared, and the square root of 64 is 8. So we have x squared plus 8 and x squared minus 8. Okay. Can we simplify any further? No. You definitely can't on this one because that's addition. This one's subtraction. Well, you can't take the square root of 8. So that's as simplified as it gets. So we want to set both factors equal to 0. So x squared plus 8 equals 0. x squared minus 8 equals 0. Okay, so on this one, we'll subtract the 8 over. So x squared equals negative 8. Take the square root. X equals, well, we need to simplify down our radical. Okay, so first of all, we have a negative, so we know that we're going to have an I. Okay, 8, well, what's the largest perfect square that goes into 8 evenly? That's 4. So we have 4 and 2. The square root of 4 is 2, so we have plus or minus 2. And then that radical, we just bring it down. Okay. Then we need to do the same thing on the other side. So we'll add 8 over. So we have x squared equals 8. Take the square root. Okay. This time it's the same thing as this, except it doesn't have an I because we didn't have a negative underneath the radical. So it's just x equals plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Okay, because remember, 4 and 2. So our solution set is plus or minus 2i square root of 2 and plus or minus 2 square root of 2. And that's our answer. Okay, number 4. Everything's on the correct side. Okay, so then we want to take out a greatest common factor because we can simplify this. We can take a 5 out of both of those and we can take an x out of both of those. So we're taking out 5x. So 5x to the 5th divided by 5x is x to the 4th. Negative 80x divided by 5x is negative 16. Okay, can we simplify further? Yes, this parentheses right here, we can do the difference of squares. So this first part that we took out, we're just going to keep bringing it down. The difference of squares with this, well, the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. The square root of 16 is 4. So we have x squared plus 4, x squared minus 4. Okay, can we simplify any further? Yes, this one right here we can still do difference of squares with. So all of this that we aren't going to do anything else with, we're just going to keep pulling it down. So we have 5x, we have x squared plus 4. Okay, difference of squares, square root of x squared is x, square root of 4 is 2. So x plus 2, x minus 2. Okay, we cannot simplify further. So now we want to set each of them equal to 0 and solve. So 5x equals 0, x squared plus 4 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, and x minus 2 equals 0. On this one, we'll divide by 5. X equals 0. This one, subtract 4 over. X squared equals negative 4. Take the square root. X equals, well, the square root of negative 4, negative is an I. Square root of 4 is 2. So you have plus or minus 2i. On this one, subtract 2. So x equals negative 2. This one, add 2. X equals a positive 2. Okay, now we want to write our solution set. So we have x equals, squiggle brackets, plus or minus 2i, comma. Okay, we also have a negative 2 and a positive 2. And to simplify that down, instead of saying negative 2 and positive 2, you can say plus or minus 2. And then we also have 0. Okay, now if you wanted to write 0 here first, that's fine. It doesn't really make too much of a difference. As long as you have all the answers in there, it'll be fine. Okay, all right, let's flip over to the other side. Number 5. Okay, so we are going to do the sum of cubes on this one because we can take the cubed root of both of these. Okay, so the cubed root of x cubed is x, and the cubed root of 125 is 5. So we have x plus 5. Okay, the second part of this is you want to take this first part and square it. So that's x squared. Okay, this next sign right here is always subtraction. Then you want to take these two terms right here and multiply them. So 5 times x is 5x. This is always addition. And then take the last one right here and square it. 5 squared is 25. Okay, now we want to, well, first of all, okay, this part right here, can we simplify any further? Can we factor that? Well, are there numbers that multiply to get you 25 and add to get you -5? No. Okay, so since we cannot factor that, then whenever we go to solve it here in a second, you can either do complete the square, or you can do quadratic formula with this. Okay, but first, let's go ahead and set them equal to 0. So we have x plus 5 equals 0. And we have x squared minus 5x plus 25 equals 0. Okay, so this one right here, subtract the 5 over. So we have x equals -5. Okay, now on this one, well, we don't want to do complete the square, because to do complete the square, the b term right here needs to be an even number. And since it's not, the easiest method to do on this is the quadratic formula. Okay, remember the quadratic formula is x equals -b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4 times ac divided by 2a. Okay, so remember we have our a, b, and c. So we're just going to pull our numbers out and plug into the formula. So we have a negative times -5 plus or minus the square root -5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 25, and it's over 2 times 1. Okay, well, a negative times -5 is a +5. -5 squared is 25. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times 25 is -100. This is over 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, then we want to simplify the radical part right here. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root. Well, 25 minus 100 is -75, and it's over 2. Okay, keep simplifying the radical. Well, it has a negative, so we know that there's going to be an I. What's the largest perfect square that goes into 75 evenly is 25. So you have 25 and 3. Okay, so that leaves that to be x equals 5 plus or minus, well, the square root of 25 is 5. We have an I because of the negative, and then we have the square root of 3. And it's all over 2. Okay, so once you've simplified that part, then you want to see, can we simplify any further? Can these numbers right here, these 2, can they divide by the denominator? No, 5 does not divide by 2, so that is the final answer right there. Okay, so on our solution set, we have -5. Let's see if I have room over here to write the solution set. So we have -5, and then we have 5 plus or minus 5i square root of 3 over 2. That is our final answer. Okay. All right, number 6. So we want to make sure we get everything over to the same side. So we want to subtract the 4x squared over. So that leaves us with 8x to the 5th, and 5x squared minus 4x squared is x squared. Okay, so then what method do we want to do? Well, we want to, first we have a greatest common factor we can take out. We can take an x squared out of both. Okay, so 8x to the 5th divided by x squared is 8x cubed. And x squared divided by x squared is 1. Okay, so then this parentheses, can we simplify that further? Yes, we can do the sum of cubes with that. So this x squared that we took out, we're just going to keep pulling it down. The cubed root of 8x cubed is 2x. The cubed root of 1 is 1. Okay, so now to finish the sum of cubes, this you want to square this first part, so 2x to the power of 2 is 4x squared. We have subtraction, then we multiply these. 2x times 1 is 2x. We have addition, and then 1 squared is 1. Okay, so then, can we simplify further? No. So we want to take each of these and set them equal to 0. So x squared equals 0, 2x plus 1 equals 0, 4x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0. Okay, so on this one, take the square root of both sides. X equals 0. This one, subtract 1 over. 2x equals negative 1. Divide by 2. So you have x equals 1, negative 1/2. I'm going to go ahead and write our solution set, or start on the solution set. So we have negative 1/2 and we have 0, and then whatever we get over here. On this last one, we want to do the quadratic formula just like what we did over here. So we have negative times negative 2 plus or minus square root negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 over 2 times 4. Okay, so a negative times a negative 2 becomes a positive 2, plus or minus square root. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. Negative 16 times 1 is negative 16. And this is over 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, simplify that further. So we have 2 plus or minus the square root. Well, 4 minus 16 is negative 12. And it's over 8. Okay, simplifying negative 12 down. Well, the largest perfect square that goes into 12 evenly is 4 times 3. So that simplifies down to 2 plus or minus, well, the square root of 4 is 2. And we have a negative underneath the radical, so it turns to an I. Square root of 3, and it's over 8. Okay, now because the 2's and the 8 can simplify. We have our little triangle right here. We want to see if we can simplify that down. It does simplify because they all divide by 2. We want to simplify that further. Okay, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, plus or minus. 2 divided by 2 is 1, but we don't have to technically write a 1 in front of the I. So we just have I square root of 3. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that is our simplified answer right there. So that's what we're going to write with our solution set over here. So we have 1 plus or minus I square root of 3 over 4. And that is those are our answers right there. Okay. All right, number 7. We can do the difference of cubes on this one. Okay, so the cubed root of x cubed is x. The cubed root of 216 is 6. And since it's subtraction here, we have subtraction there. Okay, so then we want to square the first part. So it's x squared. This sign is always addition. Multiply x and 6 together, so you have 6x. And then this is also always addition. And then you square the last number here, so 6 squared is 36. Okay. All right, so now we set each of them equal to 0. So we have x minus 6 equals 0, and x squared plus 6x plus 36 equals 0. Okay, so this first part, we just add 6 over. So x equals a positive 6. Okay, on this one, because we can't factor it or anything, we can do complete the square on this because we don't have a number up here and the b term is an even number. So to do complete the square, first thing you want to do is you want to move the 36 over by subtracting it. So that leaves us with x squared plus 6x, leave a blank. You subtract that over, it's negative 36. Okay, now you want to take your b term, which is 6, divide it by 2, which is 3, square it, which is 9. So you want to add 9 on both sides of the equation. Okay, now you want to factor this part. What multiplies to get 9 and adds to get 6? Remember, it's always the number that's in parentheses right here, so it's 3. So it's x plus 3 squared equals negative 36 plus 9 is negative 27. Okay, now we want to solve this. Well, the first thing you want to do to solve that is you want to get rid of the square. Well, to do that, you've got to take the square root of both sides. So you have x plus 3 equals, well, simplifying down the square root of negative 27, well, the negative is going to create an I. Okay, what's the largest perfect square that goes into 27 evenly is 9 times 3. The square root of 9 is 3, and that square root of 3 you just bring down. Okay, but we still need to get the x by itself over here. So to do that, we've got to subtract 3. And when you subtract it over, it always goes in front of the plus or minus. So that's x equals negative 3 plus or minus 3i square root of 3 is our answer. Okay, so then we want to write our solution set. So negative 3 plus or minus 3i square root of 3, and then the other one is 6. Okay, so the only time that you do complete the square is when there's nothing in front of the x squared up here and when this number is a b, or I'm sorry, the b is an even number. Okay, otherwise you're going to do the quadratic formula. Okay, all right, number 8. So first thing you want to do is you want to move the 54 over. So we have 16x cubed minus 54 equals 0. Okay, greatest common factor. What can we take out of both 16 and 54? Well, we can take a 2 out of both of those. So we're left with 8x cubed minus 27. Okay, we can, with the parentheses right here, we can do the difference of cubes. So that 2, we just keep pulling down. What's the cubed root of 8x cubed is 2x. What's the cubed root of 27 is 3. So to finish the difference of cubes here, you got to square the first part right here. So 2x squared is 4x squared. This is always addition. 2x times 3 is 6x. This is always addition. 3 squared is 9. Okay, now we set each of them equal to 0. So 2 equals 0. 2 does not equal 0, so that just cancels out. So it's not going to be one of your factors. Okay, 2x minus 3 equals 0. Well, you add 3 over. So 2x equals 3. Divide by 2, x equals 3 over 2. On this one, because we have a number up here in front, we're just going to do quadratic formula. So it's negative 6 plus or minus the square root, 6 squared minus 4 times 4 times 9 over 2 times 4. Okay, so it's negative 6 plus or minus the square root. Well, 6 squared is 36. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16. Negative 16 times 9 let's see, I don't have that written down. Negative 16 times 9, well, that is 54. And what's a negative? 9 plus 5 is 14, so negative 144. And 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so then simplifying that even further. So we have negative 6 plus or minus, well, 36 minus 104, or I'm sorry, minus 144 is negative 108. And it's all over 8. Okay, so simplifying the radical down. Well, we have a negative, so we know we're going to have an I. So negative 6 plus or minus, we know we have an I right here. 108, the largest perfect square that goes into 108 evenly is what we're looking for. That's going to be 36. So 36 times 3 is 108. Okay, so the square root of 36 is 6, and that square root of 3 we just bring down, and it is still over 8. Okay, now can we simplify that even further? Well, the 6's and the 8 divide by 2, so we're going to simplify that by dividing by 2. So negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that right there is your answer. So our solution set, we have negative 3 plus or minus 3i square root of 3 over 4, and we have 3 over 2. Those are our answers. Okay. All right, number 9. Okay, do we have a greatest common factor that we can take out here? No. Okay, because we don't have an x squared in this last term right there, so we cannot do that. But we can do basic factoring. So what multiplies to get negative 42 and adds to get 1? Well, that's going to be 7 and negative 6. Okay, and because this is an x to the 4th, when you write your factors, it's going to be x squared. So x squared plus 7 and x squared minus 6. Can we simplify any further? No, and neither one of those are going to factor out even further. So we set both of them equal to 0 and solve. So x squared plus 7 equals 0. X squared minus 6 equals 0. So on this one right here, we want to subtract 7 over. So we have x squared equals negative 7. Take the square root. X equals, well, can we simplify the square root of 7? No, but we can take the negative 1 out, so it becomes an I. So we have plus or minus I square root of 7. Okay, on this one, we want to add 6 over. So x squared equals 6. Take the square root of both sides, so we have x equals, well, we can't simplify down the square root of 6, so we just have x equals plus or minus the square root of 6. So our solution set is plus or minus I square root of 7 and plus or minus the square root of 6. Okay. All right, number 10. So we want to move everything over to the right side over here. So subtract 13 over and add 9x to the 4th over. So x to the 4th and 9x to the 4th becomes 10x to the 4th, and 3 and negative 13 becomes negative 10. Okay, do we have a greatest common factor we can take out? Yes, we can take out a 10 out of both of those. So that leaves us with x to the 4th minus 1. Okay, the parentheses here, can we factor it even further? Yes, we can do the difference of squares. So that 10 we just pull down. Difference of squares with this, the square root of x to the 4th is x squared. The square root of 1 is 1. So x squared plus 1, x squared minus 1. Can we simplify further? Yes, we can still do the difference of squares with the x squared minus 1. So this first part right here, we just rewrite it and pull it down. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 1 is 1. So x plus 1, x minus 1. And that's as simplified as we can get it. So now we want to set each of those equal to 0 and solve. So 10 equals 0. Well, that doesn't equal each other, so it cancels out. X squared plus 1 equals 0. Subtract the 1 over. X squared equals negative 1. Take the square root. Okay, well the square root of negative 1 is I, so it's just plus or minus I. X plus 1 equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so x plus 1, you want to subtract the 1 over, so x equals negative 1. This one, you want to add the 1 over, so x equals a positive 1. So our solution set, x equals squiggle brackets, we have plus or minus I, and over here we have a negative 1 and a positive 1, so you can say plus or minus 1. And that's our answers. So plus or minus I and plus or minus 1. Okay? All right, we just have a few more problems. We have this other sheet just to get some more practice with it. Okay, I want to make sure that you see every type of problem. Okay, so on number 11, we already have everything over here to the same side. So then we want to see, do we have a greatest common factor? Well, we can factor out an x out of all of that. So x cubed divided by x is x squared. Negative 8x squared divided by x is negative 8x. And 16x divided by x is 16. Okay. Can we simplify further? Well, can we factor this part in parentheses? Yes, because we have numbers that multiply to get 16 and add to get negative 8. So this x we pull down. What numbers multiply to get 16 and add to get negative 8? Well, it's negative 4 and negative 4. So we have x minus 4, x minus 4. Okay, now set each of them equal to 0. So x equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. Do we have to write this twice? Well, they're the same exact term, and it's not going to show up more than one time, so you only have to do it one time. So add 4 over, x equals positive 4 is the other one. So our solution set is 0 and 4. Okay, number 12. Everything is over here to the left side right here all together. So greatest common factor. Well, we can take a 2 out of everything, and we can take an x squared out of everything. So 2x to the 6th divided by 2x squared is x to the 4th. Negative 10x to the 4th divided by 2x squared is negative 5x squared. Negative 48x squared divided by 2x squared is negative 24. Okay, do we have numbers that multiply to get negative 24 and add to get negative 5? Yes, we have negative 8 and 3. So this 2x squared just pulls down. Okay, when we are factoring this part because it's x to the 4th, remember that these need to be x squared. So we have x squared minus 8 and x squared plus 3. Okay, because negative 8 and 3 multiplies to get negative 24, and they add to get negative 5. Okay, can we simplify further? No, we cannot do the difference of squares with either of those. So now we're just going to set them equal to 0 and solve. So 2x squared equals 0, x squared minus 8 equals 0, x squared plus 3 equals 0. So 2x squared equals 0, divide by 2. X squared equals 0, take the square root, x equals 0. This one we want to add 8 over. X squared equals 8, take the square root, Okay, well, what's the largest perfect square that goes into 8 evenly? That's 4 and 2. So the square root of 4, we have plus or minus 2 square root of 2. This one, subtract 3 over. X squared equals negative 3. Take the square root. X equals, well, you can't take the square root of 3 and the negative becomes an I. So we have plus or minus I square root of 3. So our solution set, we have plus or minus I square root of 3. We have 0. And we have plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Okay. All right, 13. First, we want to move the 16 over. So we have 3x to the 4th minus 2x squared minus 16 equals 0. Okay. Do we have a greatest common factor we can take out? No. Okay. So the only method we can do here is slip and slide. So we want to take the 3, we want to slip it down here to the end. So we have x to the 4th minus 2x squared. 3 times negative 16 is negative 48. Equals 0. Okay, so now what multiplies to get negative 48 and adds to get negative 2? Well, it's negative 8 and 6. So we have x squared minus 8, x squared plus 6. And because we multiplied times 3 up here, when we factor, we have to divide by 3. 8 over 3 does not simplify. So to get rid of the fraction, we want to take the denominator and slide it up here in front. So we have 3x squared minus 8. 6 over 3 turns to 2. And we have x squared plus 2. Okay. Can we simplify further? Is there any other method we can do? No. Okay, so now we just set those equal to 0 and solve. So 3x squared minus 8 equals 0. X squared plus 2 equals 0. Okay, so we want to add the 8 over. 3x squared equals 8. Divide by 3. X squared equals 8 over 3. Take the square root. Okay. On this part right here, well, actually we haven't even gotten into that. So let's just leave it like that. So we'll, instead of, there's technically you're supposed to simplify down the radical even further by getting rid of the radical in the denominator. So we would want to multiply the numerator and denominator both by the square root of 3. But we haven't really gotten into that. That's actually in the next unit. So let's not worry about that right now. Let's just say that that is x equals plus or minus the square root of 8 over 3. That'll be fine as the answer right there. Okay. On this one right here, so you want to subtract the 2 over. So we have x squared equals negative 2. Take the square root of that, and you have x equals, well, we have an I under here, and because it's a negative, and then you can't simplify the square root of 2, so it's just plus or minus I square root of 2. So our solution set is plus or minus I square root of 2, and plus or minus the square root of 8 over 3. Okay. All right, 14. So subtract the x squared over and subtract the 1 over. So it's 5x to the 4th, and right here we have 13x squared minus x squared, so that's 12x squared, and negative 8 and negative 1 is negative 9. Okay, so then we don't have a greatest common factor we can take out, so we want to do slip and slide. So x to the fourth plus 12x squared, and 5 times negative 9 is negative 45. What multiplies to get negative 45 and adds to get 12? That's 15 and negative 3. So x squared plus 15, x squared minus 3. Because we multiplied by 5 up here, here we have to divide by 5. So x squared plus 3. Over here, 3 over 5 doesn't simplify, so take the 5 and slide it in front of the x squared. So 5x squared minus 3. Set each factor equal to 0. X squared plus 3 equals 0. 5x squared minus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 over. X squared equals negative 3. Take the square root. X equals plus or minus I square root of 3. The other one, add 3 over. 5x squared equals 3. Divide by 5. Take the square root of both sides. X equals plus or minus the square root of 3 over 5. So x equals, squiggle brackets, plus or minus I square root of 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 over 5. Okay. All right, 15. We have 4 terms here. Okay, we do not have a greatest common factor we can take out of all of this. So we have to do the grouping method here because we have 4 terms. So cut it in half. Okay, out of this first set right here, what can we take out of both of those terms? Well, we can take an x squared out. So x cubed divided by x squared is x. 2x squared divided by x squared is 2. Okay, out of this part, what can we take out? We can take a 5 out of both. 5x divided by 5 is x. 10 divided by 5 is 2. Okay, now because these parentheses are the same here, we can take these two and put them together. So we have x squared plus 5, and we have x plus 2. Those are our factors. Can we simplify further? No. So we set them equal to 0 and solve. So x squared plus 5 equals 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract the 5 over. X squared equals negative 5. Take the square root. X equals plus or minus I square root of 5. This one, subtract the 2 over. X equals negative 2. So our solution set, we have plus or minus I square root of 5, and we have negative 2. Okay, all right, and then the last one, same thing, we have 4 terms, so we're going to do grouping methods, so cut down the middle. What can we factor out of the first set here? We can take an x squared out. That leaves us with 2x minus 3. Out of the second half here, what can we take out of that? We can factor a negative 16 out. And that also leaves us with 2x minus 3. Okay, put these together. We have an x squared minus 16, and we have a 2x minus 3. Can we simplify those further? Yes, this first one here we can do difference of squares with. So the square root of x squared is x. The square root of the square root of 16 is 4. So x plus 4 and x minus 4. Okay, now we can't simplify further, so we set them equal to 0 and solve. So we have x plus 4 equals 0, x minus 4 equals 0, and 2x minus 3 equals 0. This first one, subtract 4 over. So x equals negative 4. This one, add 4 over. X equals a positive 4. This one, add 3 over. 2x equals 3. Divide by 2. X equals 3 over 2. So our solution set We have a negative 4 and a positive 4, so just say plus or minus 4, and then we have 3 over 2. Okay? All right, guys, I know that's a lot, but I just wanted to make sure that we go over every different type of problem. Just remember that this is the same thing as what we did last week with all the different factoring, except now we're solving it as well. So you just set your factors equal to 0 and then solve for each one. Okay, let me know if you have any questions over anything. Remember, I will be logged on today on Google Hangouts from 1 to 2 p.m. You can also text me, call me, or email me at any time. I did put my phone number on the first letter that I sent home. Okay, hope you all are doing well. All right, bye guys.